Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1, Brian Moore. We warmly welcome the family of Flight Sergeant Arthur Hedley Jenkins, whose story will be told shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge Auntie Mary Coconut, Napranum Community Elder. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Arthur Hedley Jenkins. Arthur Hedley Jenkins was born on the 25th of February 1924 in Elmara, near Grafton in New South Wales. The youngest son of William and Frances Jenkins, Arthur attended the Grafton High School, played cricket and football, and later worked as a farmer. He enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 9th of October 1942 at the No. 2 Recruit Training Centre in Sydney and spent the next 9 months training at bases across Australia, including the No. 1 Initial Training School near Melbourne, the No. 2 Wireless Air Gunners School at Parkes in New South Wales, and the No. 2 Bombing and Air Gunnery School at Port Pirie in South Australia. In May 1943, he qualified as an air gunner and on the 15th of June embarked at Brisbane for service in the United Kingdom, where he arrived late in July. Jenkins continued his training at the No. 27 Operational Training Unit at Litchfield, Staffordshire. While there on the 27th of November 1943, he was promoted to the rank of Flight Sergeant. In February 1944, he moved to the 51 base at Scampton, and in May 1944, he joined RAF number 467 Squadron in Waddington, Lincolnshire. Number 467 Squadron was a bomber squadron, which since early 1943 had been flying Avro Lancaster heavy bombers on strategic bombing missions over Germany and occupied Europe. Number 467 Squadron flew mainly nighttime bombing missions on industrial and infrastructure targets. In 1944, Jenkins and his unit supported the D-Day landings in Normandy by undertaking preparatory bombing raids and after 6 June by attacking strategic targets across France. Jenkins served on the Lancaster aircraft as a rear gunner. In this role, he would defend the rear of the aircraft with machine gun fire. Conditions for rear gunners were difficult, as they played a vital defensive role on the aircraft that required them to serve on constant high alert and to operate in cramped, unheated turrets. On the 15th of July 1944, Jenkins took off from Waddington aboard Lancaster ME 851 to take part in a raid on German-controlled positions in France. 222 Lancasters, supported by 7 Mosquito aircraft, were flown from their bases in the United Kingdom, and upon crossing the French coast, split into 2 main groups to attack separate targets. Jenkins' aircraft formed part of the group designated to attack the marshalling yards at Nevers in central France, about 200 kilometres south of Paris. At about 3 a.m. on the 16th of July, Jenkins' Lancaster collided with Lancaster ME 807 of RAF No. 207 Squadron in the skies above Ligne S de Touraine, a small village in the south of l'Abour River. Both aircraft burst into flames and exploded upon contact with the ground. All 15 crewmen on the 2 aircraft Jenkins included were killed in the accident. Jenkins was 20 years old. The bodies of the 15 airmen were buried together by the local population of the French town near where they fell, and were able to be formally identified after the war. They now lie in Ligne S de Touraine Communal Cemetery in France. Jenkins' grieving family left the following inscription on his grave: "God has him in his keeping. We have him in our hearts." His name is listed on the roll of honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Arthur Hedley Jenkins, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and we wish you all a very good evening.